All right, it is Wednesday, August 27th, 2025. This is the Dartmouth Board of Health. It is 4:32 p.m. I'm going to open the meeting with a roll call. So Emily Michelle Olmsted, Chair, is present. Richard Romero.
Richard Romero is present.
Thank you. And Susan Murray?
Present.
Excellent, thank you. As a reminder to everyone here, this meeting is being recorded. So going off of our agenda, for section 1 appointments, we do not have any. So I'm going to move into section 2, which is old business. Item A is the approval of domestic animal permit, temporary permit issued previously by the board to be approved for an annual permit, which in this case is Brian Souza, 90 Bryant Street, Dartmouth, for 20 hens, chickens, game birds, and 1 rooster. Normally I'll go to the applicant first, but Chris, does it make sense for you to start on this one?
Sure, thank you. So when I wrote the board some notes last week, there was only 1 complaint that was received from our database. However, in conversations earlier today, and at the end of the day, it was discovered that there were other complaints. And fortunately, when you get a complaint, for roosters, it can be very difficult to document them. The complainant did provide us with a video, and the video, we could clearly see the location, hear the rooster crowing based on the atmospheric conditions, with the sun, everything. I have no doubt that that rooster was outdoors at 5 a.m. in July. There seems to be some discussion with the complainant about, when is noise tolerable and intolerable. One of the things that we've always encountered with intolerance to roosters with the general public has been in those early mornings, particularly in, late May through late July, early sunrise. They're crowing when people are still asleep, trying to get an hour or 2 more asleep. In this case here, not only are we getting a complaint about the rooster crowing at 5 a.m. in July and have now seen the evidence and heard, it's also crowing during the day, and apparently there's some annoyance that is creating with a neighbor. So, unfortunately, bringing this to the board's attention now. I'm not sure if the applicant is on, so I can hold if the chair wants to have other discussions.
Sure. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to go to my fellow Board of Health members, and then I will see if there's anyone else in the audience who's here to speak on that. Richard Romero, do you have questions or comments at this time, especially for Chris?
No, not at the moment. Just waiting to hear from the applicant if he is on.
Sure. And Susan Murray?
I would also like to hear from the applicant. But I also, roosters crow all day long. It's not just sunrise. And there's dawn chorus, there's birds all the time. So I'm curious to see what the applicant says. But I don't really think there's much you can do about roosters crowing during the day. I get that you can have them inside to prevent that early morning crowing.
Okay, thank you. All right, now the chair wants to recognize, is there anyone here, particularly, I'll start by the applicant who is either the owner or again, the applicant for 90 Bryant Street. Can you please raise your hand? I don't see anyone. Okay, then is there anyone else here on behalf of this property or issue? Please raise your hand. We don't see anyone. All right. So then, Chris, did you? It seemed to me. Oh, okay. Thank you. So hold on a second. All right, so can you please state your name and address for the record? And then
Mike
go ahead.
Flannery.
Thank you, go
Mike
ahead.
Flannery, 100 Bryant Lane.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
we can hear you, go ahead.
Okay. I'm hearing this rooster at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm 2 houses down, and it's ridiculous. I don't mind it during the day. It's just the 5 o'clock in the morning with the windows open because it's warm. I don't use air conditioning, and it's just, why do we? If I wanted to listen to a rooster, I would have bought a farm. I don't want to hear this at 5 o'clock in the morning. Some mornings I've heard it at 4:30. So I mean, it's ridiculous. I'm aggravated with it. That's all. I don't have anything else to say.
Okay, thank you. I saw there was a message that came from someone named Moses, who I'm not sure if that person wishes to speak or not, but it appears that they do not believe that the owner of the applicant is here. Moses, would you like to speak? Identify yourself for the record, please.
Moses Lynn, I live at 92 Bryant Street, so I'm
Thank you.
directly next door to all of this. The only question I really have is what is the proper process to have chickens and a rooster if the bylaw states that you need a permit in order to obtain one? Wouldn't he have already bypassed that procedure by having it anyway?
Chris, do you want to answer that because it's procedural and you probably can do it more eloquently than I can?
Sure, thank you. So the applicant has applied for a permit, was granted a temporary permit. The temporary permit allows for the assessment of the ability to keep the requested animal at the property without creating problems. It then allows the board, upon the expiration or near expiration of that permit, to reconsider the approval and make a decision based on any facts that are at hand during that trial phase.
So when
So
was
that's where we are. That's where we are at now. So there is a temporary permit, and the item on the agenda today is for consideration of instating that to a full permit or take any other action relative thereto.
Okay, so when was the temporary permit issued? And was that generated by the owner of 90 Bryant Street or by the town?
That was in June. As far as that specific question, I would have to go back and look into the file. Just hold on a second. I might be able to get it quickly, but we may not.
Yeah, I mean, you might even be able to answer the question of whether or not it makes a difference whether the town created the temporary permit because the amount of chickens and the rooster already existed on the property, so they were giving the owner the benefit of the doubt to see whether or not complaints came in, right?
Okay.
Or
So what
if it was,
I think I can answer that question now. So, so the town of Dartmouth Board of Health has domestic animal regulations, which have
Correct.
standards for when a domestic animal permit is needed. Because of the lot area being under 200,000 square feet, or any lot being under 200,000 square feet, that is what triggers a permit need when a rooster is involved. You're allowed to keep 12, laying hens, but roosters, because of their ability to create noise, is what generates the requirements for a permit. So back in June, there was a complaint. It was investigated by an agent of this office to determine that a permit was needed to keep it. The regulations as they are, unless we can prove there's a nuisance, it is somewhat by right until we can prove that there is an inability to keep the animals in conformity. And by what I mean by conformity is that they can't create a nuisance.
Okay. But the bylaw states they're only allowed to have 12 chickens. If they have 20, then they're outside of your regulation. If they have a rooster, they're also outside of your regulation, regardless of the
No.
temporary, right?
No. So, no.
Oh,
So if they're allowed 12 or fewer hens by right,
Right.
but if they
But
have
if they have
13
20,
hens, if they have 13 hens, 14 or whatever number above 12, that triggers a need for a permit with us.
right. And so all I'm saying is my understanding is that this person got 20 chickens and a rooster without filing a permit with the town, which is not legal under the bylaw. And then a complaint was filed because he was doing something that was not legal by the bylaw that generated a temporary permit to have the things that he had that were originally illegal based on your bylaw, right? So then I don't understand why he now has a potential right to maintain the things he originally illegally obtained.
It is very common for the town to encounter people that were unaware of the Dartmouth Board of Health domestic animal regulations. There's a fair amount of permit applications that we process each year that are by discovery of animals already being kept at that location. And,
Chris-
yes.
No, go continue. I'll interrupt after.
Yes, and so when we're looking at animals that are already there, the goal is compliance. So the first thing that we have to do is if you want to keep them, we have to follow due process. Due process is to offer them a remedy for compliance. Yeah, it's a violation, but if you apply, then that's working towards compliance. The board then acts. And again, it goes back to, for the board to act to deny initially, it has to be a substantial, fact at hand, because what will happen then is that we're going to be going into enforcement and, enforcement with the courts. These are the same courts that are dealing with much more, truly, I don't like to use the word illegal when we talk about civil regulations of the Board of Health, but when it's a violation. But when we find ourselves before the court, these are the same judges and magistrates that are dealing with acts against humanity, violence, drug offenses, and so on. So we do have to be cognizant of that and make sure that we are following due process. If we don't follow due process, it'll make the situation far worse.
So, Chris, at this moment, because if I'm understanding, there certainly have been complaints. There is still ongoing concern and potentially concern about the number of animals, which is not before us, but is it possible for a Board of Health member to accompany a Board of Health staff member and perhaps do a site visit before a decision is come to on this permit? Is that an appropriate next step, or what would you recommend to us as board members at this time?
I think that would be a good next action would be to conduct a site visit and.
Okay.
In the presence of the owner, and also then have the owner appear again. And I would, also recommend that in the meantime, within, the next 7 days. So in the meantime, he needs to keep the rooster enclosed as originally directed from sunset to sunrise, and also needs to, in my opinion, have a crow collar at his disposal. If the coop is not able to arrest the noise, then you can put a crow collar on and abate the noise further.
Can I interject here, please?
Yeah, please state your name and address for the record, but the chair recognizes you, so go ahead.
Nicholas Pike, 41 Wilbur Avenue.
Thank you.
Chris, you earlier brought up the nuisance violation. So per the Dartmouth bylaws, it says a nuisance violation occurs when excessive and unreasonable sound significantly disturbs the peace and quiet enjoyment of a property or the surrounding community. Now, if you look lower in that bylaw, it also calls out that natures of noise violations can involve various sounds, including loud music, construction, barking dogs, and amplified sounds. So my gripe here is, and I don't think that this neighbor is a terrible neighbor. I think that he, in his defense, he actually bought these chickens not knowing one of them was a rooster, because he went to the local, like everybody does, they go to the local Harbor Freight or wherever they grab a Tractor Supply, excuse me. And he got this rooster in error. But the point is that I don't believe that it's lawfully right for me as a neighbor to not be able to have windows open on a Saturday where I'm being woken up at 5:15 and 5:20 in the morning by a crowing rooster. I also think that nuisance violations can occur between the hours of dusk and dawn per the town bylaws. If you speak with anybody from animal control, me as a homeowner, I can't have a dog that sits outside and barks all day. That right there is a nuisance violation in itself. So I think just the fact that this owner was allowed, I mean, I get it was an error, but allowed to keep a rooster and have it basically roosted right in front of my bedroom window. And now, especially now where I'm not running my AC, I have my windows open. Even on days where I'm not up at 5 a.m, which I typically am, I now hear a rooster. And then I hear it again at 7 o'clock. And then I hear it again at 9 o'clock. And then at noon. And then at 4. And then at 7. It's not like this thing's a sun up, sundown rooster. It's an all day roost. And the only way you're going to hear this rooster, cock-a-doodle doing is if you sit outside all day, which I do sometimes. I like to enjoy my front yard. I like to be able to sit on my front porch. And I don't think it's right for me as a neighbor to, have to deal with this. And I also find it a little ironic that this same neighbor sat up in another local meeting a few months back and basically discussed that he was upset that, he bought this neighborhood and it was a nice, quiet neighborhood. And then 2 months later, erroneously maybe it introduces a rooster to the neighborhood. I don't understand it.
Thank you. Chris, are there legal hours during which noise is allowed, if you will?
So
7 a.m. to 8, 7 a.m.
This
to 8
question is
p.m.
for Chris. The chair calls on Chris, please.
Sorry.
Thank you.
So we have the domestic animal regulations, and there are a separate set of regulations. And to the best of my knowledge, I think I might be the only one that's ever issued a citation under those. There is the town bylaw that has, it's the noise bylaw of the town, and that, I'm very familiar with that bylaw. What we want to do is address things in their best regulatory scope. And when we're dealing with noise coming from a rooster at a property where we have jurisdiction by the issuance of a permit and the ability to condition, the ability to table, the ability to deny, take any action relative to that application, that is the best venue. When we start expanding I've got to be careful because enforcement strategy is not something that should be talked about publicly. But when we start trying to expand our scope and use others, it stalls, and it's not good. So I would not advise using the town's noise bylaw to address this. We have the board's domestic animal regulations that allows the board to address this. If the animal cannot be kept to prevent nuisances, the board can take any action relative to this temporary permit, which can include not permitting it beyond the temporary permit, which is set to expire.
And I think, Chris, my last question, at least for now, is precedent wise, the Board of Health typically does allow roosters because typically the conditions that are placed upon either a temporary or then an annual permit have been sufficient to stop complaints, which usually those conditions are cooping the rooster from sunset to sunrise and or the crow collars in more needed situations. Is that correct? That is the precedent that has usually been set thus far?
Yes.
Okay. So then if I understand correctly, Chris's recommendation is that we table this so that way a Board of Health member can conduct a site visit in the presence of the owner. And then in the meantime, the rooster must be kept. Would this be a condition, Chris? Or would we phrase this as a condition that the owner must keep the rooster enclosed from sunrise to sunset and must have a crow collar at the ready in case the coop can't stop noise? Is condition the correct term?
So the temporary permit was for 90 days, and it was issued. It's set to expire on right around September 1st. I don't remember how many 31 days there are. So it's either the 31st or 1st is when it expires. So it's only good for a few more days. So if the board was going to consider tabling this until their next meeting, then I think the board is within its authority to say, you have to adhere to that initial condition on the keeping of the rooster indoors to prevent crowing. But in addition to that, that's still standing. When we were talking, and then Mr. Pike, joined the meeting and commented, he mentioned his concern with the rooster's noise even during the day. So, that would continue. So, the board could consider, do they want to, see the collar, a crow collar on that rooster during the daylight hours as well, during this, possible last assessment period, if the board was to table it. The board could deny it. The board could approve it. Those are all of the options available to the board at this time.
I have one additional question, if that's okay.
The chair recognizes you. Go ahead.
If was the condition during this temporary permitting that he was supposed to keep this rooster inside?
That is correct. That is my understanding of the conditional, the usual permits that we put on anyone with a rooster.
So if
Chris, would you agree?
If I had over a dozen videos of this rooster crowing at all hours of the day, including at 5:20 in the morning that I recently sent over to Chris's office this morning, I thought that there was only an injunction for the daylight hours. I mean, I sent over the one video I had at 5:20 in the morning that I was able to capture. But I mean, I have numerous videos throughout the day of this rooster over this past permitting process doing what you guys are hoping to extend. So if this person wasn't abiding by it in the permitting process, what are we to do to think that he's going to do it during this extended process? What are we really doing here?
So that's what we as a board have to vote on as well. So for one, I don't have that in front of me. I'm glad you're bringing it to our attention right now. And one of the things that we are going to talk about as board members is if we want to conduct a site visit. But if there is additional evidence suggesting that the original conditions that were placed upon this have not been followed, then that certainly is, I would say, is of interest to the Board of Health members as we navigate this decision.
I was told by Allie and Chris's office that was sent to somebody today before this meeting, that there was in fact just a pre-dawn hour video. I didn't know that I was supposed to, send the numerous daytime videos also. I wasn't under that authority that was one of the conditions.
So
here.
this is Chris. I think there is some confusion. We have never, so his permit is conditioned for the rooster to be kept indoors from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Okay, so that
to
was the
date, we have-
condition.
Yeah, to date, I am unaware of any board decision that has restricted the keeping of roosters during daylight hours when a permit has been granted for the keeping out of property.
Okay, but what about the pre-dawn hour video that I was sent? Were you made aware of that? I didn't catch the beginning of the video, so I didn't know if that was made present.
So what as chair, what I'm telling you is that we as board members receive information more than 48 hours or about 48 hours before a board meeting. And so since if it was sent today, we have not been able to review it yet.
Oh, okay. I
So
just didn't know
Chris,
that today was a meeting.
okay, yeah, thank you. So Chris, my question is, it sounds like there isn't a precedent for, and this is what I was trying to get at with the question about the noise hours. There's not a precedent for restricting crowing during the day. Do we have the right to do that, to require that crow collar as a board?
Yes, absolutely.
We do, okay. All right, at this point, I am going to, I'll say a couple of words and I'm going to turn it over to my Board of Health members before we move toward a decision. So, you know, I trust Chris's expertise. I think the site visit absolutely makes sense. Especially, you know, I don't have any evidence in front of me regarding potential other numbers of animals, but I think a site visit is going to provide information both to our staff and one of us about this. If we are able to require a crow collar, and there clearly are complaints about this, and that, again, that's within our jurisdiction to do, I think we should consider it. I want to hear what my other members think. And so, and then too, I wouldn't say why not on top of it to enclose the rooster from sunrise to sunset, just as an extra precaution, because that is already supposed to be in place. So I'm supposed to emphasize that. So those are my thoughts on it. I'm going to go to my Board of Health members. I'm going to call on Richard Romero first. What are your thoughts, questions? Let us know where you're at.
Yes, I am a little concerned though that he did not follow through on keeping the rooster penned during the those hours, those restrictions. You know, so yeah, I'm mixture of whether we should do a site visit or just rescind the permit at this point. You know, if there are some videos that are there that's showing that throughout the day and also pre-dawn hours, yeah, it's a concern. It is a densely populated area. So, yeah, those are just my thoughts. I mean, if he wasn't able to keep that during a 90-day period, you know, is he going to keep it while we do the site visit and afterwards? So, and that he's not here at the moment is also a little concerning. Those are just my thoughts.
Thank you. Susan Murray.
So I have a question for Chris. So did the applicant actually fill out this application, or was it a temporary permit issued when the animals were discovered?
So the applicant, we do not fill out applications for anyone because it makes us a proponent, or it implies us as being a proponent of an application. So it was discovery, and then he was instructed to, apply or get rid of. And, and if he didn't get rid of, then we take enforcement actions on keeping without a permit. So that's what generated the permit application being submitted. Once it was submitted, it worked into the board's next agenda, which would have been, I believe, the May meeting of the Dartmouth Board of Health. Actually, no, June 2nd.
Okay. And then my other question is, do you offhand know what the housing is for that rooster?
I have not been there. The animal control officer has been there. She went there. She said that, she went there the other day and looked at it. She said there was a solar door. That was one of the items that we had discussed. But as far as, having been there myself, no, animal control has been.
Okay. Those are my only questions. if you have housing that is not completely dark, then the housing isn't really going to help with the crowing. If you have like skylights in your coop, or if you're not putting, if your animals aren't actually going in the coop, that obviously doesn't help at all. You know, mindful of the neighbor complaints. You know, I think I would like to see an inspection and see what's going on, but also require a crow collar in the interim is kind of how I feel.
Can I just close with the fact that as a community member and a neighbor, the fact that 3 neighbors are here to oppose, and the person that's supposed to be here for the permit that he didn't even take out himself in the first place is not here, does that not speak volumes for, you know, the type of neighbor and what this is putting on the neighbors around it? I mean, I just feel like as board members, you guys have to take the consideration of us into this. I feel like all the consideration is being put into this one neighbor that, you know, negligently housed the rooster, was caught doing so, and then can't even attend his own board meeting. But then here we are as neighbors here, ready to show our complaints and our voices, and we're the ones that aren't being heard. I just feel like I feel like that should speak louder than anything in this meeting.
Chair Olmsted, can I?
Go ahead, Susan Murray. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So I want to say that I think we are all hearing you. I also recognize that not knowing someone's situation, not knowing their work schedule and whether or not they were able to make it, I think we're all trying
He's
to.
playing in his front
One
yard
at a
right now.
time, one at a time. Susan Murray right now, please.
I think we're trying to listen and we hear you, but also trying to take everything into consideration. A crow collar would stop the loud noise. So I think it's trying to take everything into consideration, and you know, that's what we're trying to do is you know, take all sides into consideration.
And I will say this too, I certainly as a board member, I believe that the videos exist. I don't have them. if there is more on this that I need to see, I want to see it. And again, if the crow collars are gonna stop it temporarily, we're just gonna have more information in between if we table, have the site visit, and between the next time where we vote on it. Because, and everything that everyone is saying is important to hear today. But if there is any more, which it sounds like our staff can follow up on and we can follow up on, I want as full a picture as possible.
Absolutely. Chris can follow up with Allie. I mean, I sent Allie the one video I had, the pre-dawn hours, but I probably have a dozen during the day. But I'll just end it with that. Thank you.
Madam
Thank you.
Chair.
Go ahead, Chris.
So no, I did see the video, and you know, it is quite clear by, you know, the acoustics of it, everything, that crowing that I'm hearing is not enclosed. And you can tell by the atmospheric conditions with the early morning glow and the screenshot, and you know, and you can see that it's clear, you know, that in July, shortly after getting the permit, you know, it was an act of defiance. You know, but what I do have to caution the board on is that, you know, if we were to, you know, the board was to take an action today, to say you're denied, get rid of it, and, you know, we're looking at escalated enforcement. It always looks better for us with enforcement if we, you know, provide opportunities. Heavy-handed enforcement, when we find ourselves before magistrates, they want to see that, you know, we did everything in our ability to prevent us from getting before the judicial system.
Thank you, Chris. The chair recognizes a Moses of 92 Bryant.
So if the understanding is that he got the rooster unwittingly, I presume he still wants to maintain his 20 chickens. Is it easiest to just say you can keep your 20 chickens with the permit? Because I don't think any of us are opposed to him having chickens. I think we're simply opposed to him having a rooster, right? I'm not opposed to eating the thing, but in terms of getting rid of it, right? But would it not be easiest to just say, hey, unfortunately, based on the scenario, you can't have your rooster, but you can maintain your 20 chickens?
So for me as chair, I don't have anything indicating that he has 20 chickens. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but that is not what his permit is for. And so that's another one of the reasons why I'm hoping a site visit is going to shed some light on this. If there are more than 12, which is what the temporary permit was for, then I believe, Chris, that's going to be either a new permit or an amended permit. But the number of birds that you have that fall under the regulation, they have to be correctly stated. So I want to make sure.
He
Go
is
ahead, Chris.
permitted for 20 hens,
It's
but
20,
it's-
okay,
yeah, and I believe that is in the agenda item.
okay, I could be misreading then.
Yeah, but
Okay, fair enough, it's 20, okay.
Yeah. So he would still have what the focus here is on is the rooster.
Okay. And I'm sorry, so then I call back to Moses. Are you saying that there is a different concern with the 20 hens? Because I believe we seem to understand, at least for now, what the issue is with the rooster. Are you saying there is an issue with 20 hens?
No. What I'm saying is I don't think anyone has an issue with the 20 hens. I think the only issue is with the rooster, right?
Yeah.
And is it not just easier to have, I mean, he didn't decide to show up. He decided to spend his time elsewhere, even though this has to do with him.
We don't know that. We don't know that. We don't know the reason he's not here, but
What
right, the
you know
applicant
and
is
what
not
I
here.
know are different, but I understand
Okay.
what you're saying.
But I do want to interject on that. I don't
Go ahead,
know
Chris.
if he was advised when we were last out there. So, again, out of fairness, if we don't have something in writing saying that, hey, you're notified of this, going back to what I said a few moments ago, we do have to, make sure that we work this step by step. Because if we find this out of our control, it goes very slow, and we're dealing with magistrates that deal with things in their eyes are far more meaningful, and they look at us as being, overbearing big brother.
In my defense, I was never notified about the meeting either, but here I am, and so are two of my neighbors. And I think what Moses was getting at is that without a permit, you're allowed 12. With a permit, you can get 20. So I think that's what Moses was trying to angle at, is that maybe we could find a happy medium here to say, hey, we'll allow you to go beyond the unpermitted 12 that he has to the permitted 20 without a rooster, I think is what Moses was trying to get at.
Yes.
Okay, there's not an issue with the hens. It is just the rooster. I think I understand now. Okay. Okay. At this time, again, I'm still leaning for the site visit, and if I understand the leanings of my Board of Health members and where we stand, I think I'm ready to make a motion. But I just want to ask again, my fellow two board members, is there anything else the two of you would like to ask or say, either Richard Romero or Susan Murray?
I think I am leaning not toward the due process of the site visit, and just making sure that, we cross all the T's and dot the I's on this, particularly if there is that violation of the, the crowing and the such. So, and I do appreciate the, the town, the neighbors coming out and, voicing this, we're not taking it lightly. So, yeah, so want to make sure that we can do it procedurally and do the right thing here. So,
Thank you, Richard Romero. Susan Murray, anything else?
I concur with that. Listening to Chris, and having seen some situations, it may seem like this is the slower route, but if you can get everyone on the same page and to comply, it can actually be better this way. So I concur that a site visit, but also asking for a crow collar in the interim.
Well said, thank you. All right, so at this time, finding that there have been numerous complaints about the rooster crowing, that Board of Health members wish for more time to review all the evidence and to conduct a site visit in the presence of the owner. I moved to table the temporary domestic animal permit for 90 Bryant Street, with, in the meantime, the emphasis that the rooster must be kept enclosed from the hours stated in the original permit, and that the applicant must use the crow collar during the day to stop the noise. Can I get a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. All right, now we're all going to vote. So all those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have it. The motion passes. Thank you all for coming out.
Is there a
Right.
timeline on the site visit?
With it's before our next Board of Health meeting.
Which would
So
be
will you hold them within 30 days? Is that correct, Chris?
That's correct, and we're due to meet sometime, before the end of September. I don't believe we've set that date yet, so that's one of the agenda items today, is to set our future schedule.
Will the neighbors be notified when the crow collar starts?
Chris, is that a
not something
typical
that we-
notification? Go ahead.
Yes, we do not have anything prescriptive in the regulations that, require that.
Chris, is there a timeline for letting the applicant know about our decision?
We don't have it, but what we would do is this is a priority item. So, I would imagine that within, 1 to 2 business days, he'll know. Or we will have made all opportunities to have him know.
I would consider this to be a priority given the interest on it. Okay. Thank you. All right, at this time, we're going to move on to Section 2, Old Business, Item B, which is discuss the date of public hearing for the proposed well regulations. Chris, do you have a suggestion for when this occurs? And I believe as we last voted, this needs to be in person. Is that correct?
That is correct. It would be better, since we're dealing with the promulgation of a regulation,
Yep.
having it in person would be, a lot more manageable, because, if anyone's there to comment, it's going to be more manageable by by us for minutes. And also, sometimes there are people that, still do express concern with, the virtual, even though it is allowed. So this would assure that, our well regulations are going through the old-fashioned process of in-person.
And Chris, we can't know at this time if this meeting can encompass any other, if this could be our regular monthly meeting, or if we're going to need a side meeting. We don't know that at this time, correct? And we can't plan around that, or do you have thoughts on this?
So as long as we were meeting, 30 days or less from today, then we will be within our window of time-sensitive applications and not have to worry about a default approval.
Okay, thank you. And you probably couldn't, we can't hazard a guess if it's going to be an appropriate amount or not. So then, does it make sense to aim for the week starting on Monday, September 15th, ending on the 19th? So that way we still have, because I want to make sure we have at least 4 weeks, right?
Yeah, I will not have availability
Okay,
in that. So,
not that week.
yeah, so I can, so the 22nd through the 25th would be ideal. And that's
For the-
pending. We can also reevaluate, we could set up 2 tentative meetings. And if nothing comes in the next 2 days, then we could push it out even into the following week of the 29th, even, to October 2nd, because if nothing comes in by Friday, then when we return on Tuesday, you know, that's when new time-sensitive applications would come in at the earliest. So we could set up, you know, in that 2-week window, but that first week, the 20th through the 23rd would, I'm sorry, we're in October now. The
22nd to the 26th.
25th would have to be the primary if anything came in. And we can conduct other business at an in-person meeting. We can conduct all routine business at an in-person meeting.
Well, for example, this most recent one for the rooster permit, we will need to talk about that at the next one. But if I'm understanding correctly, it could be potentially that we talk about the well regulations and this one, which is considered to be a priority, and then we will know soon, based on the way the clock works, if we're going to need another meeting or not, or how heavy that meeting will be. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So then I suppose let's aim to just set the one in-person meeting at this time. So I know for me, usually 4:30 is probably the safest I could get to town hall, but you know, I can see about finagling something else if that doesn't work for my other Board of Health members. Where are you guys at with that week of September 22nd to the 26th for an in-person meeting? Richard or Mary, you want to go first?
Like Wednesday or Thursday would work.
Okay.
Pushing more to Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, 4:35 is any of those times would work for me.
Susan Murray, what are your thoughts?
Thursday's the one day I couldn't do it. I have a work event
Okay.
that night.
So what about that Wednesday though? Wednesday, the 24th at 4:30, is that a potential sweet spot for everyone?
I could do Wednesday.
Yes,
And Richard or Mary is a yes too?
yes.
Recording in progress.
Sounds like Chris got his technology working again. So Chris, does that work on your end? Wednesday, September 24th at 4:30 for an in-person meeting?
That's correct.
Okay, I'm gonna put that on the calendar. Okay. Okay, and then so there's that, and then the well regulations. Okay, so that's all set. We picked the date, right, Chris, with nothing else on that agenda item.
Correct.
Okay, so then moving on to section 2, old business item C, which is continued proposed tobacco regulations discussion with the board on proposal from prior board decision to revise. Do you want to speak on that, Chris?
Sure. Thank you. So I just wanted to, apprise the board of a recent discussion on the draft regulations because it's something that we talked about earlier in this board cycle back in, I believe, May. So it's expected that he'll have his draft final draft back to me, which will probably result in some discussion. So we could be looking at these draft regulations, sometime, maybe October, realistically November, December.
Great. So then you don't suggest at this time that that we take an action on it. You're just giving us an update.
That is correct.
Great. Richard Romero, Susan Murray, does either of you have a question for Chris on this? Okay, I'm going to move on.
I don't.
Thank you. Right, I'm going to move on to section 3, new business, item A, discuss Board of Health meeting schedule for the rest of the year. We just set September, and we probably, it sounds, I'm reading the notes from Chris, and it says we will expect a need for another in-person meeting in October or November, but we don't know yet when that will be. So I think, do we want to try and set especially in what we just talked about too, where we might have another need for a meeting? Do we want to set October and November right now, or do we want to keep those fluid and decide them at the next September meeting? Chris, what do you think?
I think maybe it might be best to stay nimble and, then when September rolls around, then my advice would be is we'll, set October, November, December.
Okay. Susan Murray and Richard Romero, is that okay with you guys? Do you have any other questions or thoughts or
Nope.
opposition to that?
I agree with that.
That's fine.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, great. All right, moving on to 3 new business. Item B, which is 196 Fisher Road, Plat 41, Lot 2, rescinding of the grant of restrictive covenant. So I'm going to see if the applicant or their representative is here. It looks like just us and Dartmouth Community Television are in the meeting. I do not see anyone else. Chris, do you want to speak on this one?
Sure, thank you. So a number of years ago, this property was undergoing some renovations, and at the time, those renovations resulted in this office having a role because the property is served by a septic system. And to make sure that those renovations would not interfere with the compliance of that septic system. So as a result of our review of that building permit application at the time, a grant of restrictive covenant was recorded to assure that it remained in compliance. And the owner at that time, who is not the current owner, didn't disclose to us all of the buildings. So if you look at the agenda and you see the plot plan for this, there are just the places full of buildings. And they didn't disclose to us, and they probably didn't fully understand the restrictive covenant at the time. And they didn't disclose to us that there was a back accessory building that has a dwelling unit in it. So that 2-bedroom restriction then at that time should have been 3, because they had 2 in the house and they had 1 in the back. But it wasn't disclosed to us. And this is an older property. You can see on the plot plan based on how these buildings land on the property line and over the property line. This was a family compound at one point, and sometimes in those situations, property lines are meaningless, but they still do mean something, for various town requirements. So in the long and the short, we have a new owner of the property. He's trying to permit a septic system. As part of the permitting of the septic system that's before the board in this agenda item, we've got to rescind that restriction because it's faulty. It doesn't adequately represent the number of bedrooms that have always been on that property, which were 3. And that's all.
But we're also looking at the variances, right? Where they go from the deeps go from 2 to 1 and the sieve analysis.
Yes, so this is going to be a 2-part process. So we would have to, the board would have to vote to rescind the waiver. Rescind the restrictive covenant, and then also a separate action to approve the design.
Okay, and we would, okay, I understand now. So you have to, okay, because you have to say that it's okay to do the 3 bedrooms before you can even consider the plan that's in front of us?
Ideally.
But the engineer's not here. Haven't we typically seen them come before us so that way we can ask them questions?
That's correct. Yep.
Do you know of a reason why they're not here?
I do not.
So then one action we could also take is to rescind the grant of restrictive covenants, because as I understand it, due to just the historic nature and the fact that record keeping has just improved and that the buildings are here, and so even though there was a grant of restrictive covenants, we kind of have to allow the rescission of it, but we could then table approving the variances that are requested until the engineer appears before us.
If that's what the wishes of the board are, that's an action that can be taken.
I mean, I guess, are you very confident in the soils here that, again, so a sieve analysis, and I'll just speak aloud because I don't know, Richard Romero and Susan Murray, how familiar you are with soils. A sieve analysis instead of a perk test is pretty typical. It's sometimes it's for safety. That one doesn't worry me. If you don't go with the required number of deep holes, then someone could make the argument that you didn't get a representative view of what soils are there on the site. However, you can ask to go from 2 to 1, so that way you don't basically dig up the site where you're going to need it for your soil absorption system. So I guess, Chris, I mean, would you be comfortable with the number of deeps that were here? Do you have thoughts on if you think that, it would be fine for us to approve this
Yeah, so I'm
for
just,
that variance?
yeah, so I'm just kind of going through. So unfortunately, I think, we got distracted too much with this covenant issue internally, staff, and we forgot to notify the engineer to be present today. We got too focused on the covenant as in all these outbuildings and whatnot. And yeah, so the error is not the engineer's for failure to appear. He was not notified. I will say that the 3 waivers being requested. The first one is one that we talk about very often. I really do believe it's an error in the code that needs to be corrected. Because what happens is the state has a harsher standard for separation between the outlet of a septic tank to groundwater. They have a harsher standard for upgrades than they do for new construction. For new construction, they allow it to site within 1 inch if there is a soil evaluation in the area. So that's bizarre, to say the least. But it is listed as a waiver. So we always just kind of follow that. Because DEP has not issued even like a policy directive on that, and I think they ideally should. So the sieve analysis, that's something that we just can't get by. The sieve analysis procedure, which is now codified, which is allowed for waivers, is to facilitate the more immediate upgrade of a septic system, and to also address those areas that sometimes just never dry out. And then lastly, as far as the number of holes from 2 to 1, I'm comfortable with it. I didn't do the witnessing, but I'm comfortable with it on 2 sides. First is that I've worked in the immediate area, and there's nothing that jumps out at me in the soil evaluation as being different. We don't have shallow ledge in the area that would be a justification for us. And then also, we always had that ability in the code as the witnessing agent of the local approving authority to say, when we're on site, even though you're allowed to do 1, we want 3 or 4, and that wasn't done at the time. So I'm comfortable with the waiver request.
Okay. And did I summarize it correctly that the reason why we need to do rescind the grant of restrictive covenants is because basically just due to the history of this site and maybe just the update and record keeping that that the current grant of restrictive covenants is not accurate to the site, and that's why we need to rescind it?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, my other members, for bearing with me while I got through all that. I'm going to call on you now for your thoughts and questions. Richard Romero.
No, no questions. I'm just trying to absorb everything here. So thank you, though.
Susan Murray, questions, comments?
I don't have any questions or comments at this time.
Okay, I'm just writing everything down. All right, ready? Let's see if I can do this. I don't see anyone else, so I don't think I need to call on anyone else. Okay, so finding, oh, we're going to do this in 2 parts. Okay. So finding that the grant of restrictive covenants for 196 Fisher Road is inaccurate due to the history of record keeping and how much it has improved, and buildings being there that were not previously documented. I move to rescind the grant of restrictive covenants on 196 Fisher Road. Can I get a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, and now we're gonna vote. All those in favor? Aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstain? Right, the motion passes. And now we're going to vote on the plan itself. So finding that the first waiver being asked for is frequently requested, and that it's the opinion of staff that the state has a harsher standard for an upgrade than for new construction, and that it is not of concern. Finding that the sieve analysis can facilitate more immediate upgrade and it is allowed, and then finding that the health agent is comfortable with the soils being pretty typical for this site. I move to approve the plan for 196 Fisher Road. Can I get a second?
I second the motion.
All right, and all those, excuse me, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstain? The motion passes. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Section 3, new business, item C, discussion to update the Town of Dartmouth Board of Health's prohibited products regulations. Chris, you want to take it away?
Sure, thank you. So this is a set of regulations I don't believe that we have discussed as a board, or maybe even with any of the members. These regulations were adopted by the Dartmouth Board of Health, I believe sometime around 2016 or 2017, thereabout. Those regulations were put in place to address products that were being sold in gas stations, novelty shops, that were enticing to, adolescents, that, being sold as potpourri, for example, or were other substances that mimicked the psychoactive effects of DEA controlled substances. So it's been a long time since we've looked at those regs, and as is the case with other products, they evolve around the regulators. So we're now seeing products now that are trying to get around some of the prohibitions and turning up. We're not the only community that's done this. Some of these products have caught the attentions of some states, and states have addressed this. So what I'm asking of the board is to see if there is an interest to update those prohibited products regulations and to modify it a little bit. So the prohibited products regulations say you can't sell it, period. And that has gone through council. If you look at some of the names in there, you look at the packaging of the stuff, it's really geared towards children. There's no age restrictions on any of this stuff. So those items that are currently banned are banned. So what we'd look to do is to expand it a little bit more. Some of this stuff that we're asking about that we've initially found, like the Delta 9, the Delta compounds, the Delta 8s, the Delta 10s, those are already banned by the DEA, but they're putting it in food items, they're selling it in capsules, but it's just too low of it's just not meeting a threshold for DEA involvement. They're still banned. A lot of people call those Delta 8 and 10 compounds that are being sold, they kind of call it marijuana light. So that's, one group of compounds that we're looking at. We're also looking at nitrous oxide. And I'm kind of paraphrasing the notes I gave to the board. Nitrous oxide, we would look, if the board was so moved, to take action on the prohibited product regulations by directing staff to begin an update, is a useful product in the medical industry, and it's also a useful product in the culinary industry. It's used to propel whipped cream. However, how many people will go to the local smoke shop if they needed if they ran out of nitrous oxide, and how many households in Dartmouth are using nitrous oxide to propel the whipped cream in their residential refrigerator. So the town of Hampton, we did some research, the town of Hampton already has addressed this. And I would propose to the board that as a similar model to follow. They ban the sale of nitrous oxide unless it's at a kitchen supply store or a medical supply store. Dentists still need it, and other procedures still rely on the use of nitrous oxide. But we know that from our research that nitrous oxide is an issue. There's reports of famous actress suffering from overuse. We're seeing a lot of reports about what's going on in Europe. There was some litigation going on in the South about this, about harm that came to a parent's child. So it goes back to what's the purpose of a gas station selling a canister that rivals that of a fire extinguisher, like a kitchen fire extinguisher. And then also it's being marketed now with watermelon flavoring, for example. From our research, the watermelon in the nitrous oxide doesn't do anything if it was being used to make whipped cream. It doesn't make the whipped cream watermelon flavored. It's for what at least I remember a number of years ago when we were seeing abuse of inhalants. They call it huffing. And model glue was one of the earlier things that was huffed for a psychoactive or euphoric experience. They went on to compressed air. So now it's nitrous oxide. So a lot of retailers, compressed air, we use it on our computers and electronics, and there's a use for it. But a lot of them started just voluntarily putting ages, and they put it behind the counter. They did some things to dissuade diversion. Right now, a 12-year-old can walk into a gas station and buy, a giant canister of nitrous oxide. And it goes back to, is that really an appropriate place where people wanting to use it for culinary purposes are going to go and get it? And lastly, what I'll say is, I don't want to go to any medical professional that gets, their equipment for my medical procedure at a gas station. So, happy to answer any questions.
Chris, thank you for putting so much research into this. So if I'm understanding correctly, what you would ask for us today, if we decide as a board that we are concerned about this, is that our action would not be a formal motion, but instead it would be mostly agreements to direct you as a staff to draft regulations to update. Is that a correct summary of what you are asking us today?
That is correct. And and as a result of a directive of that nature, we would dive in a little bit deeper so that we wouldn't have a oops moment and 3 months later or 6 months later have to revisit it. We'd want to give the board a comprehensive listing of those new items on the market. And I did leave one other item out. And I believe I put it into my notes that I sent to the members. And that's the synthetic urine that's being sold. And I put some notes on that as well. The synthetic urine really is, when you start doing the research on that, the intent of the sale of it, the marketing of it, is purposeful, to me at least, with what I've found. It's purposeful to try to get around drug testing. And that's a concern. Do we really want to see products being sold in Dartmouth that are designed to evade drug testing? Drug testing, does play a critical role in public health and safety, namely with our commercial driver's licenses. That is a federal license. where drug testing is required. Do we want people on the road driving, heavy equipment, especially now that school's back in session, that are evading or easily finding products in town to try to evade drug testing for the safety of the public? And then lastly, school bus drivers have CDLs. So, they're driving around, with buses full of children. So, that's a product that's not being marketed to, to take it with psychoactive. It's being sold to evade drug surveillance when you're required to go in for screening.
Chris, a quick question, and then I'll kind of say where my thoughts are before turning it to my other members. And if we are moved to have you draft the regulations, they would go before council at some point, so that way, if there were any question about legality, council would have their say of it. Correct?
That's absolutely correct.
Thank you. All right, so here's where I stand. I think you make some excellent points. Flavoring things so that they're more appealing to children is absolutely terrifying to me, and certainly worth putting a stop to. And to the argument there, it's hard to imagine a chef running into a gas station to buy nitrous oxide, or a doctor for that matter. So I think restricting the sale of those, kind of as you suggested, and doing that deeper dive is a good idea. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit mixed on the synthetic urine. I absolutely see the arguments for it. So I probably could be swayed in that direction, but that one I'm slightly more ambivalent on, or maybe need to do even more research. But with the others, I absolutely think that Chris is spot on, and it's alarming. Richard Romero, thoughts, questions?
Yeah, I think restricting the sale of both items, actually, the synthetic urine is a concern, especially like you said, CDL drivers or whoever needs to be drug tested. So I'm perfectly fine with the town drafting regulation on this, and definitely seeking, counsel on this, just to make sure we're detailed and we don't find any issues on the road. So yeah, I'm all for this.
Thank you. Susan Murray.
Yeah, I'm for it. I've done a quick Google of nitrous oxide. It is in a lot of, it is very readily whippets, right? If you have a home, use it for whipped cream at home. Also AutoZone for cars, nitrous oxide in cars. So I definitely, I don't want kids using whippets and all these things, but it would be good to have a fuller picture of what banning it in town would mean for other uses that might be legitimate. I'm for it, but just making sure that's covered. I'm also I'd be interested to read more about the synthetic urine. I think unless there's some evidence that school bus drivers are using it and putting our children in jeopardy, I just warn not to use that example. I respect all our school bus drivers in town, and definitely don't want to be thinking that's a great, I get the wanting to bring to the forefront the seriousness of it, but I don't want on record for our school bus drivers to think we're going after them. But I would like more information on that for sure.
Member Susan Murray, what did you mean by AutoZone?
Oh, you can buy nitrous oxide at AutoZone.
Do you know what purpose?
You can use it in a car, right? To boost a car.
It's engine performance.
Really? Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Your culinary staff would either order that to a restaurant supply store, or I've seen it been in many restaurants, and they keep it out of sight basically, so it's not something that they'll go in there. And I do agree, like, not to label the bus drivers and such, any town workers, but it's anybody that can come in and grab it and do what's not right. So
Right. A bus driver would be a worst case scenario. We have no evidence to believe that that's happening, but sure, if
Correct.
we were to restrict the sale of it, it would just, not be hopefully as available in Dartmouth for any Dartmouth drivers. Okay. I think it sounds like we're on the same page about this. So if I'm hearing everyone correctly, we do want to direct you, Chris, to go ahead and draft these regulations with all of the concerns that you brought before us, and then and do that deeper dive. And you don't need a motion.
I do not. So what I would do is if there's no, immediate opposition, this is going to be a really fast regulation to draft because we're just looking at putting in products. I'll look into the nitrous oxide on the cars. Maybe there's a way in which we can address that. I want to see, right now we only have, I think we've got one auto supply store in Bliss Corner. But I'll take a look into that. And when the draft reg comes back at a hearing to the board, it doesn't mean that it's all or nothing. The board can take any action relative to a draft as a result of further research, public comments, etc.
Great. Thank you. Okay. And I want to please, my fellow members, unmute and speak now if you oppose, but I think it sounds like we're all on the same page. Great. Okay. So section 3, new business, item D, which is the minutes of July 30th, 2025. Pass on for me, Chris, to the thank you to Donna. I can send her a message as well that she made the she sent out an email with the new minutes, and I certainly didn't have an issue on them, but I'll bring it to each member. Richard Romero, did you have any questions or comments on the minutes?
no, I do not.
And thank you. And Susan Murray, do you have any questions or comments on the minute?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Okay, so I move to approve the amended minutes sent by email for the Dartmouth Board of Health for July 30th, 2025. Can I get a second?
I second.
And now we'll vote. So all those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? The motion passes. Thank you. Okay. So now on to section 4, any item not known 48 hours in advance. This item is informational only and not for deliberations by the public body. I actually had just one note about this. I assume everyone was included on the email from the select board about it's something, if it's not exactly code of conduct, it's similar wording, and just wanted to note that although there's an acknowledgement form, we are not Board of Health, we are not select board appointed, we are elected. So I do not believe we are obliged to sign an acknowledgement form. I just wanted to share that. Chris, do you have anything to add or any additions on what I just said?
I do not.
Okay. Anything else? I think this is it. All right, so it is 5:51 p.m. on Wednesday, August 27th, 2025 for the Dartmouth Board of Health meeting. I move to adjourn the meeting at 5:51. Can I get a second?
I second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.